Hello and welcome to the May 31st, 2026 episode of Nick's News. I am your host, Nick, brought to you by Some Budget Studios. That's right, we are paying for this project of ours. We're live every Sunday, and I thank you all so much for tuning in or catching the replay on the Nick's News YouTube channel. This is a program dedicated to bringing good news to counter all of the bad news that we are bombarded with on a daily basis, with the hope of bringing a little bit of joy back to the world. Several of our articles are pulled from sites like Industry Tap, Live Science, Positive.news, and GoodGoodGood.co, but we appreciate everything sent in by you, the Nick's Newsies. Hello, everyone. Happy to see everyone back. Last week was a pre-recorded episode. Why was it a pre-recorded episode? Because I was out of town, and there was absolutely no way I was going to be recording an episode from where I was. I had an absolutely amazing Memorial Day weekend. I hope that you all did too. But here we are back again on live broadcasts of Nick's News. So, News Brew. We have had a wild and random month of May with our news brews. They've been all over the place. And I had a great grab bag of brews to go through. So, it's finally time to settle things down and return to the river. Now this can with this wonderful Frog Knight. I absolutely love this guy. So this Frog Knight is a 4.7% Berliner Weisse from City Built Brewing Company, which is a brewery here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I live. It triumphantly displays the Frog Knight having acquired the sword Croakscalibur. And I am looking forward to this beer. It's very mellow. It's going to cool things down and end things on a good note. Producer Donna just wanted to throw in, I didn't want to break the streak of no missed shows in 2026. That's right. This year we are shooting to have a show every Sunday, be it live or be it a pre-recorded. So that's what we're shooting for, and so far we're on track. What do you drink a Berliner Weisse in? It's a different kind of beer. We haven't really had a lot of these on Nick's News. Well, it's an excuse for me to bust out my St. Bernardus Watteau goblet. Yes, this gigantic, oversized piece of glassware is just the right glassware for a Berliner Weisse. So, we don't need the Balisong bottle opener because it's a can, so we're just going to blow the gain on the audio by cracking this sucker open. And we'll get into the theatrics of a 5-minute pour in this wonderful goblet. Beautiful golden yellow color. White head that's clearing up pretty quick, and I always go for the straight pour because I don't want all this gas inside me. It's not going to make it flat. It's not going to screw it up. I promise you. Ooh. Oh. What was that? That was a little sweeter than I expected. Ooh, there's something in there. There's something really good in there, but look at that color. That is a beautiful Berliner Weisse. That is a wonderful color for it. It's very effervescent. Oh, it smells fantastic. It's got a little bit of like wheatiness, some malt, and there's something sweet in there that I can't quite pick out. Something a little citrusy, but I like it. So, shout outs. Grand Rapids' first and only Cat Lounge is right in the heart of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Happy Cat Café is a cozy little spot for cat lovers, coffee drinkers, and anyone who just needs a break from the chaos. They've got colorful lattes, refreshing lotus drinks, and a laid-back vibe that pairs perfectly with a lapful of purring fluff. Partnered with Fig and Friends Animal Rescue, they give adoptable cats a comfy space to hang out, meet new people, and find their forever homes. Every visit helps support local rescue, and you might fall in love and leave with a new best friend. Visit all their socials and show them some love. The links are included below in the description of our video. So, to Happy Cat Café, partnered with Fig and Friends Animal Rescue. Cheers. Hey, Becky. Oh, wow. Whoa. There is a lingering tartness. That is a tasty beer. This is a good one to close out the month of May. Dang. I like this one. Hey, Dirty Rogue. Did you know that Nick's News has a notification system, a notification list that you can join if you would like reminders about upcoming shows and events? As with all our various outlets, we offer exclusive content to our notification subscribers. That's right, so we have different content really across all the different platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and in TikTok. We've got different stuff on all of them that we show off. So to get the whole Nick's News experience, you've got to be a part of all of them, really, or check them all out at your leisure. But we also have this notification list where we send some really funny, cool stuff. And each Wednesday, you get a special treat, as well as a show reminder for Sunday afternoon and an hour before the live show. So if you're on the notification list, you get all these notifications that, hey, there's an episode upcoming. I know it can be difficult sometimes to remember to throw things in your calendar. And so this is kind of a way that we are taking that responsibility on ourselves to let you know, hey, there's going to be an episode if you want to tune in. So if you would like to receive reminders on Facebook or Discord, you can let us know and we will get things coordinated. We do not share or sell information to anyone ever. That is not what we do. We basically just use the information you provide to message you when we've got our shows coming up. So you can message us on Facebook, or Instagram. You can email us at somebudgetstudios@gmail.com. Links are all in the description if you would like to get on our notification list. So the Nick's News notification list and the people that run it. Cheers. Maybe it's raspberry? I'm not sure. I'm going to have to do some digging because this beer is really good. News quote. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you've imagined. That comes from Henry David Thoreau, who lived from 1817 to 1862 and was an American essayist, a poet, and a philosopher. And I really love that quote. We dream big. That's a superpower that humanity has, is to dream big, is to look at the world around you and imagine where you want to be. And it can be difficult sometimes. It can be scary to have that dream and think that it's unattainable. But what if it isn't? And what if the way to get there is to just start walking, to just start pursuing it? Maybe that's all it takes. Maybe it is that first step that's going to put you on the right path to what you imagined and make that dream reality. I honestly think that might be the case a lot of the time. So, go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you've imagined. From Henry David Thoreau. Cheers. Bug update. It's been pretty warm lately for the bugs. I think it's like 79 in this room right now. It might actually be like 79, 80 degrees in here. I'll have to check the thermometers. But that's the temperature range that these bugs really like. So they've been out and about. If you caught the Instagram post from this previous week, you would have seen some pictures of Sue racing to get into his hide to hide from me as I spotted him. So obviously he just doesn't like me, but all of the bugs have been out and about, which has been great to see. Ripley and Little John are nice and fat. They got a couple crickets each, so they're looking really good. The Cuddle Puddle is singing a couple new tunes, and they're still fighting. And Sue was out and about, which is great. Hopefully Elmira, our giant vinegaroon, is going to wake up out of hibernation here soon. I've been able to look in and see that she is moving about, so hopefully soon she'll be fully awake and out on the surface doing some more excavating so I can get frustrated with her completely destroying the nice way that I set up her tank. So all is well in the bug world. All right. With that, let's get into our broadcast, which is broken up into 4 major categories, and those categories are science and technology, health and medicine, flora and fauna, aka plants and animals, and wholesome notes, really nice articles that we like to end on. We've got 6 articles here tonight. We're going to start off in category 1, science and technology, and we call the first article that we've got Power on the Water. And I will copy and paste it into the chat if you all want to check it out. As usual, all of the links to our articles are in the description of the video, so you can check them out at your leisure. And we advise that you do so. We want to push all of these websites. They are the ones that are making the articles. We're just reading them. So check these sites out. Maybe add them to your bookmarks so that you can find all this good news that they're providing at your leisure. It really is some cool stuff. And it gives some love to these different websites. So, give them some traffic. Australia's floating solar array is doing a lot more than generating electricity. This was published to BGR.com on May 9th of 2026 by Alec Hively. I think it's Hively. Australia's water supplies are evaporating. According to researchers at Deakin University, the country's water infrastructure loses nearly 370 billion gallons every year due to evaporation, about 3 times the water in Sydney Harbour. But the land down under has crafted a novel solution to persevering its water supplies, one that has an added bonus of inching the country closer to zero-emission goals. Floating solar power cells. Oh, producer Donna found me a post about... Producer Donna actually looked up the beer for me. Brewed in collaboration with Downtown Grand Rapids Incorporated to celebrate the Return to the River Festival, Sourvice yeast provides a lactic sour character during the standard fermentation. Fascinating. So it's actually a lactic sour. That might be where a little bit of that funk that I thought I caught was coming from. Very cool. Thank you, Producer Donna. All right. Back to the article. Known as floating photovoltaics, or FPVs, or flotovoltaics, these massive floating installations of solar panels are cropping up across Australia's dams and water reservoirs. By covering the surface of water reserves, solar panels drastically reduce the rate of evaporation. Critically, it does so without triggering algal blooms that ruin water quality, a common problem with traditional covers that block out too much sunlight. Instead, the installations actually keep water supplies clean while adding renewable energy to the country's power grid. Of course, solar panels are not a catch-all to Australia's energy or water concerns. However, their proliferation across the country exemplifies how municipalities and industrial partners can address climate issues when provided sufficient funding and willpower. Furthermore, the solar projects underscore the interconnectedness of global climate concerns and the auxiliary benefits of their solutions. And although floating solar panels may not grab as many headlines as the solar moon ring project proposed by Japanese firm Shimizu, they may prove an essential piece of the green energy puzzle. Floating solar farms are becoming increasingly popular as a green energy measure, since photovoltaics offer several benefits over traditional solar projects. For one thing, the water is a natural coolant, a critical advantage given that solar panels' efficiency rates decrease as temperatures rise. Solar arrays that use bifacial panels, which capture sunlight on both sides of the panel, further increase efficiency by using the light reflecting off of the water. As such, photovoltaics can be more efficient than traditional arrays. The water savings from such arrays are more than a knock-on effect. Australian utilities have found that laying solar panels across 70% of a reservoir's surface can cut evaporation rates by over half. This was via Bloomberg. There's a link to that article in this article. This could prove particularly helpful in rural agricultural areas, where canals and irrigation channels often lose massive amounts of water. In California, for example, researchers found that the state's 4,000 miles of aqueducts could conserve roughly 63 billion gallons of water every year by installing, there's one for the dictionary, by installing solar arrays. The revelations helped spur California's latest energy experiment, Project Nexus, which looks to install solar panels across the state's network of agricultural canals. I'm pretty sure we actually talked about Project Nexus on a news nibble? I'd have to double check, but Project Nexus I'm really reminded of that. I can't remember if we had a full article or if we talked about it in a news nibble. Similar projects are underway in Australia, where installing FPV infrastructure in the country's agricultural areas is increasingly becoming a priority. In 2025, for instance, the Australian Renewable Energy Agency invested $8.5 million in a 5-year initiative to test the technology's viability in Australia's agricultural settings. The project is part of the Australian government's Future Drought Fund's Resilient Landscapes program, and plans to deploy the floating arrays across the country's farm irrigation infrastructure. Market researchers expect demand for such installations to climb over the next decade, due in large part to the Australian government's willing support. One example is the floating solar farm in Warrnambool, Victoria. Completed in 2026, the array is the country's largest, consisting of 1,200 bifacial solar panels, generating more than 600,000 kilowatts of electricity annually. The energy from the array powers the Warrnambool water treatment plant and is expected to reduce the utility's greenhouse gas emissions by over 650 tons per year. Similar projects are cropping up around the country. Norwegian photovoltaics company Ocean Sun and Singaporean firm Canopy Power, for instance, have partnered to bring 70-meter solar rings to Australian utilities. Australia isn't the only country that wants to deploy the technology. In fact, the country's collection of floating solar farms are relatively diminutive compared to other nations long invested in the technology, such as Japan. In 2016, Japan erected what was then the largest floating plant consisting of 50,000 photovoltaic panels. By 2019, the country's lakes had 73 of the world's 100 largest floating solar panels. Since then, China has risen into a world leader in solar energy, boasting several of the world's largest floating projects, including its 320 megawatt Dingzhong solar farm. However, both South Korea and India are developing solar projects that will surpass the Dingzhong project. France, the Netherlands, Indonesia, Portugal, Taiwan, Norway, Italy, and the UK are among the countries investing in floating solar power. In the US, the NJR Clean Energy Ventures in Millburn, New Jersey is the continent's largest photovoltaic project. That is really awesome. To everybody involved in Australia and across the world with installing photovoltaic systems to capture solar energy and save water conservation. Cheers. That's a word that's going to stick with me. Photovoltaic. I really like that. All right, we called the next one The Bountiful Benefits of Bacteria. And I'll copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check it out. Sorry, the pollen's been getting to me too just a little bit. Got a little bit of a sniffle. How Northern Ontario researchers are using bacteria-powered tech to extract critical minerals from mine waste. This was published to CBC News on April 8th of 2026 by Faith Greco. Researchers in Sudbury, Ontario are working on scaling up bacteria-powered technology in an effort to recover valuable metals from old mine waste. A pilot facility by Mirarco Mining Innovation is testing how microbes can break down mine tailings, the leftover rock and sediment from mining, and release critical minerals such as nickel, cobalt, and copper in a process known as bioleaching. Although bioleaching technology is a staple in international mining, in use at some 30 mine sites globally, Canada has yet to achieve full-scale commercial deployment, according to Nadia. That is a last name. How do you pronounce that? There's a lot of Y's in there, and letters that don't normally go together. Nadia... Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin with this one. I'm going to copy and paste this into the chat, and maybe somebody can help me with his pronunciation. Producer Donna has stumped me on this one. Producer Donna did not warn me that that was coming up. How do you pronounce that? I don't want to get this person's name wrong. This is a person who's doing a lot of work. This is a CEO of Mirarco, the research arm of Laurentian University, and I don't want to get their name wrong. So someone please tell me how to pronounce that mess right there. Mykytczuk? How in the hell do I pronounce that properly? I guess while others are looking, I can... How to pronounce... Mykytczuk? What is it? It's Ukrainian origin. Ukrainian surname Mikitchuk. Okay. Mikitchuk. 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 All right. Canada has yet to achieve full-scale commercial deployment, according to Nadia Mikitchuk. See, I almost screwed it up again. Nadia Mikitchuk, CEO of Mirarco, the research arm of Laurentian University. Mikitchuk was among those who spoke to CBC during a recent tour of the 10,000 square foot pilot facility in Sudbury, including to get a first-hand look at how bioleaching works. Although researchers moved into the facility last May, their work has been years in the making. Tailings are very common material that you see in Sudbury or any mining community, said Mikitchuk. In Sudbury alone, the tailings contain $8 billion to $10 billion worth of nickel, she said. Despite the estimated value of the waste material, companies have yet to put money into reprocessing the tailings because of the significant cost of sending the material back to the smelter. Instead, tailings are typically mixed with water and stored in large ponds, raising concerns about long-term environmental risks. Jamie Neen, National Program Co-Lead with Mining Watch Canada, said there are two main risks: how the material behaves chemically, and whether it remains physically stable over time. One concern is that tailings can generate acid and release metals that may slowly leak into the surrounding environment. To limit those reactions, tailings are often stored underwater. But that creates another risk, according to Neen. I think it's Neen. Now you've got hundreds of millions of tons of material that's wet and not stable and has to be held back by a dam, which has to be intact for centuries, if not millennia, to keep that stuff from crashing down on the rest of the landscape or being washed away in a flood, he said. Neen highlighted the potential consequences if these structures fail, citing the 2014 collapse of the Mount Polley Mine Tailing Dam in British Columbia that caused the release of toxic mine waste into adjacent lakes and streams. If those structures fail, the consequences could be severe, Neen said. He pointed to the 2014 failure. Oh, wait. They copied that paragraph. Sorry. Both the federal and provincial governments have significantly intensified calls for critical mineral development to secure supply chains for clean energy technologies, like EV batteries, and national defense due to the rising global demands and the need to reduce reliance on adversarial suppliers. Wink, wink. Mikichuk said bioleaching is a way to tackle both the demand for critical minerals and mining cleanup. If we want to find a source of critical minerals in the near term, the mine waste are a fantastic opportunity. There's potential to extract billions of dollars worth of these critical minerals in a very short time frame. We want to make sure these technologies get into the hands of industry, so we need to build larger spaces like the Sudbury facility to scale that up. Similar work is underway elsewhere in Canada, though much of it remains in early stages. In Nunavut, Canadian North Resources has tested bioleaching at its Ferguson Lake project. In northern Alberta, an exploration company is studying whether microbes could help extract rare earth elements from black shale. The Sudbury project is among several receiving support through the Federal Critical Minerals Research, Development, and Demonstration Program, aiming at moving technologies like this closer to commercial use. How does this all work? What is bioleaching? We've been talking a lot about the companies, but what exactly is bioleaching? Well, bioleaching starts by grinding down these tailings and mixing them with a liquid solution that feeds bacteria. That's also when the microbes are introduced into the mixture. So we're going to take the tailings, grind them up, mix them with some food for the bacteria, and get the bacteria to work. As the bacteria feed on the minerals, the chemical reactions allow the metals to separate and move into the liquid. The resulting slurry is then moved through a series of reactors, where the process continues. The metal, which is now in a liquid form, is then extracted. Researchers inside the lab are working to replicate how the process would function in a large mining operation. That means designing a system which moves material continuously through a series of tanks, rather than being processed in separate batches, explained Emmanuel Goma, a senior scientist at Merarco. Goma said the setup allows the slurry to flow from one stage to the next, often using gravity, while fresh material is constantly added at the start. In the mining industry, you do not work on a batch system. You always continuously supply fresh material. Once the process is complete, most of the metal contained inside the tailings can be extracted. I can recover about 99% of the nickel that was put through at the end of this process, and this in terms of research is good. It's actually worth increasing the capacity and investing into a much bigger system, Goma said. Hey, Christian. Waste is still left behind after the process is complete, but Goma said it's free from toxic material and can be used for other things. The remaining materials could potentially be used in construction or returned underground as backfill in mining operations, he added. In another lab in the Sudbury facility, Zach DiLoretto, a senior research associate, explained how the team develops the bacteria that's going to be used in the bioleaching. In these cultures, we grow the bacteria that do the work, DiLoretto said, adding that different types of microbes are designed to target specific minerals found in mine waste. Some of those microbes are acid-loving, meaning they thrive in highly acidic conditions. They're used to break down sulfide tailings, a common type of mine waste. Others are tailored to go after different materials, including iron oxides and silicate minerals, which can contain valuable elements used in modern technology. Those include rare earth elements and metals like lithium, dysprosium, and neodymium. Neodymium, which are key components in electrical vehicle batteries and clean energy systems, for example. We use high precision analysis, geochemical, biogeochemical, and we look at different strategies to effectively and economically extract things like rare earths from different mineral host rocks, De Loreto explained. To study how well the process works, researchers analyze how the bacteria interact with different types of rock. One example is spodumene, a mineral commonly found in the Sudbury region that naturally contains lithium. De Loreto said most lithium extraction today relies on processes that can be very energy intensive. In today's day and age, most lithium extraction is done at high temperature, high pressure. But we can look at things like specialized organic acids and biomolecules produced by specific bacteria to target these minerals. The team is also exploring ways to turn the extracted metals into products with industrial applications. De Loreto said part of his job is to prove to industrial partners that the materials they process are commercially viable and more valuable than a standard material like iron. For example, he can convert basic iron resources into ferrofluid, which can be used for things like water purification. That's pretty cool. The research team said the next step is to move from pilot testing to full-scale operations in Canada, hopefully within the next 2 to 3 years. There are commercial examples globally already. Canada has yet to build a full-scale commercial bioleaching operation, but we're getting really close, McKitchick said. Whew, long article. Thank you for sticking with us through it. But that is really neat that Canada is finally getting in on bioleaching. To everybody at Morarco Mining Innovation leading the way with Sudbury tailings and using bacteria to leach cool metals out of rock and waste. Cheers. Hey, Tim. Whew. All right, that's going to get us out of science and technology. We're going to move into category 2, health and medicine. We've got one article in here, and we called it, "There's Literally a Pill for Everything." I'll copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check it out while I read. Becky says, literally. A pill can stop people from developing COVID after being exposed to the virus. Trial finds. This was published to Live Science. It was published... When was this published? Let me look at that date. I believe this was published on the 17th of May, 2026, by Pandora Dewan. It's a really cool name. 6 years after COVID-19 first made headlines, an antiviral pill has finally been shown to stop users from developing the disease after being exposed to the virus. The drug, called encetrov... Another drug name. Oh boy, drug names just kill me. A drug called ensitrelver was originally approved for use in Japan as a treatment for COVID-19, and it has now been approved as a preventative treatment too. Now promising late-stage trial results have been published as regulators in the US and Europe consider whether to follow suit, Nature reported. Faye the Meow says, say it fast. Ensitrelver. There we go. Now we're getting it. 3 times fast. Ensitrelver. Thanks, guys. Perfect. While SARS-CoV-2 is no longer prompting global lockdowns, the virus still poses a significant threat to a large proportion of the population, especially older adults and people with compromised immune systems. But while antivirals like Pfizer's Paxlovid have been developed to reduce disease severity and viral load once an infection is started, nothing has so far proven effective at preventing the disease after exposure to the virus. Thanks, Becky said, good job, thank you. Now, ensitrelvir, developed by Japanese pharmaceutical company Shionogi, has been shown to significantly reduce the risk of developing the disease, according to research published Wednesday, May 13th, in the New England Journal of Medicine. The trial specifically focused on exposures from household contacts, a common source of SARS-CoV-2 spread. So if your roommate got sick, you could take ensitrelvir in addition to distancing yourself from them at home. Ensitrelvir works by blocking a key enzyme that the virus relies on to make new copies of itself. This enzyme is also targeted by Paxlovid, but unlike Paxlovid, ensitrelvir was shown to significantly reduce the risk of developing COVID-19 symptoms compared to a placebo among those who had been exposed to the virus. The newly published trial looked at more than 2,000 people who lived with people who got infected with SARS-CoV-2 between June of 2023 and September of 2024. Roughly half of the participants were given a 5-day course of ensitrelvir, while the other half were given a placebo. Neither the participants nor the researchers knew who had been given which pill, making the trial a double-blind. Tim asks, what are the side effects? Let's see if we get to them here. While 9% of those given the placebo within 72 hours of exposure developed COVID-19 symptoms, only 2.9% of those who took ensitrelvir became symptomatic. The trial runners also tested participants for SARS-CoV-2 up to the 10th day out from exposure. Only 14% of those who received the drug tested positive, with or without symptoms, compared to 21.5% of those who received the placebo. There was no real difference in side effects between the ensitrelvir and placebo groups. In fact, slightly fewer people in the ensitrelvir group reported adverse effects, 15.1% compared to 15.5%. Reported adverse effects included temporary and reversible reductions in good cholesterol and higher levels of fat in the blood. So honestly, not the worst side effects possible compared to some of the stuff we've read on bottles these days. Have a good night, Becky. Thank you very much for liking and sharing. It's greatly appreciated. The researchers note that their trial did not consider factors that might influence the degree of household transmissions, such as the size of the household and whether or not participants were social distancing. The medication was also not tested on pregnant women or those taking medications that could interact with the drug. This is really the first clear demonstration in a well-performed Phase 3 placebo-controlled double-blind trial that we actually have an agent that is easily administered orally and effective if taken in a timely fashion for protecting individuals who are exposed to COVID-19 in the household setting. First study author Frederick Hayden, a professor of medicine and pathology at the University of Virginia, told MedPage Today. Beyond households, he said that the drug would likely also protect patients in the case of COVID-19 outbreaks at nursing homes and long-term care facilities. It's just that those uses weren't expressly included in the trial. Ensitrelvir, known by the brand name Zocova, was approved by Japan's health ministry for treatment of mild to moderate COVID-19 infections in March of 2024 and as a means of preventing the disease in March of 2026. It has also been approved in Singapore. Shionogi submitted the drug for U.S. Food and Drug Administration approval in September of 2025. A decision by the U.S. regulator is expected in June, according to MedPage Today. That is really neat. To everybody involved with developing an antiviral pill that can help you reduce the likelihood of developing anything related to COVID-19 after you've been exposed. Cheers. All right, that's going to get us out of health and medicine. We're going to move on to category 3, flora and fauna, aka plants and animals. Faye just said in the chat, as a healthcare worker, we love that. Very cool. I am glad to hear that, Faye. So, sorry. Ooh. Back to the back to the next category, flora and fauna, aka plants and animals. We've got 2 articles in this section, and this first one was sent in. We call this one, because it applies to them, I Like Turtles, aka Homeward Bound, a Dinosaur Tale. And this one was sent in by Eliza. So Eliza, thank you very much for sending in this article. I will copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check it out. I'm going to take a sip of this beer, too. Wet my whistle. Doug the Tank returns to native habitat after rescue from Lake Michigan surf. This was published to MLive on May 12th of 2026 by Justine Lofton. Doug the Tank, a 33-pound, 30-ish-year-old common snapping turtle, was released into a suitable habitat on Sunday, May 10th of 2026. He was rescued back in April from a Lake Michigan beach in Grand Haven, Michigan, after flooding likely washed him out of his native habitat. The picture of this dinosaur is hilarious. A sassy snapping turtle that had a misadventure on a Lake Michigan beach is fully recovered and back at home. Before his rescue, Doug the Tank had reportedly been struggling in the surf and walking up and down the beach for several days in Grand Haven, according to Michigan Amphibian and Reptile Sanctuary in Kalamazoo. Faye the Meow says, Doug the Tank, I think I found my new LARP character. Oh. He was among many turtles reported on the shoreline after local flooding likely washed them out of their natural habitats, said Kayla Yarbrough, executive director of the sanctuary. Only one other could be rescued. Many died. By the time a volunteer reptile transporter found Doug, he was lethargic and nearly unresponsive. However, he didn't suffer any lasting damage. His main diagnosis was exhaustion. After a 30-day stay with the sanctuary for monitoring, the 33-pound, 30-ish-year-old snapper was released on Sunday to a suitable habitat near where he was found. Dirty Rogue says, clink clank, here comes the tank. After spending time recovering, regaining strength, and reminding everyone how much attitude a snapping turtle can fit into one shell, Doug was finally ready to head home, Yarbrough said on social media. Common snapping turtles like Doug are not found on Great Lakes beaches because they can't handle the waves and strong currents, she said. They prefer slow-moving or calm freshwater habitats, including marshes, ponds, swamps, and creeks that have soft, muddy bottoms. Doug was released into a peaceful inland water habitat suited to his species, Yarbrough said. As Doug disappeared into the water, an eagle flew directly overhead carrying nesting material to a nearby tree. She said, it was perfect. This perfect spot may have been his home before he was likely swept away by floodwaters, ending up on the dangerously unsuitable beach. Another possibility is that he was an unwitting but well-intentioned person moved him. An unwitting but well-intentioned person moved him? The flooding theory became more likely after the sanctuary began receiving calls about other turtles on the beach in the same area, Yarborough said. About a week later, calls came in about dead turtles on the shoreline, where displaced turtles had previously been reported. Due to a shortage of volunteer transporters in the Grand Haven area, the sanctuary was only able to rescue one other turtle from the area. A very skinny, painted turtle that is still recovering, Yarborough said. We were worried for a bit that he wasn't going to recover, but he's doing well now, she said. I feel awful for the ones that didn't make it. I feel like I failed them. We are grateful, however, for the happy ending for Doug and his little painted turtle buddy. The sanctuary encourages people not to move turtles and offers a couple rules when it comes to turtle encounters. If a turtle is crossing the road, move them across in the direction they were already facing. Only remove a turtle from the wild if it is injured and needs a licensed wildlife rehabilitator. Never pick up a turtle by its tail. This can cause serious spinal injury. If you encounter a struggling or injured amphibian or reptile, you can contact the Michigan Amphibian and Reptile Sanctuary at 616-312-7412. The Michigan Amphibian and Reptile Sanctuary is a nonprofit organization licensed for wildlife rehabilitation through the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. To everybody involved at the Michigan Amphibian and Reptile Sanctuary for helping Doug the Tank complete his homeward bound a dinosaur tale to go back to a nice pond that is more suitable than Lake Michigan, and to Eliza for sending in that article. Cheers. Clink clank, here comes the tank. All right, this next one made us realize that we have a ton of articles about these animals, and we have had so many that we decided to make these another dedicated article title. Now, usually we try to come up with funny titles for the articles, but we have some recurring ones. Hecking Good Boy, I Like Turtles, Not All Heroes Wear Capes. So now we've got a new one. Beavers always build it better. Because frankly, they do. I will copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check it out. Beavers turn rivers into powerful carbon sinks, study finds. This was published to SciTech Daily on May 10th of 2026 by the University of Birmingham. Beavers are quietly turning rivers into powerful natural carbon traps. Beavers may be far more important to the climate than previously thought. A new international study led by researchers at the University of Birmingham suggests these animals can transform river systems into powerful carbon dioxide sinks by reshaping wetlands and waterways. Published in Communications, Earth and Environment, the research is the first to calculate both the carbon dioxide released and captured as a result of beaver activity in suitable wetland environments. The project involves scientists from the University of Birmingham, Wageningen University, the University of Bern, and several international partners. The study focused on a stream corridor in northern Switzerland that has experienced more than 10 years of beaver activity. The researchers discovered that wetlands created by beavers stored carbon at rates up to 10 times greater than nearby systems without beavers. During the 13-year study period, the wetland accumulated an estimated 1,194 tons of carbon, equal to 10.1 tons of CO2 per hectare annually. Dr. Joshua Larson from the University of Birmingham and lead senior author of the study said, "Our findings show that beavers don't just change landscapes. They fundamentally shift how CO2 moves through them. By slowing water, trapping sediments, and expanding wetlands, they turn streams into powerful carbon sinks. This first-of-its-kind study represents an important opportunity and breakthrough for future nature-based climate solutions across Europe. Beavers have gradually returned to rivers and natural habitats across Europe after decades of conservation work. According to the researchers, these animals significantly change the way CO2 is stored, transported, and retained in headwater streams, which are the smaller upstream sections where rivers begin. As beavers construct dams, they flood stream edges, create wetlands, redirect groundwater flow, and trap large amounts of both organic and inorganic material, including CO2. These changes reshape entire ecosystems and increase the amount of carbon stored in the landscape. The finding suggests that restoring beaver populations in appropriate wetland areas could help capture and store large amounts of carbon while reducing the amount that returns to the atmosphere. To measure the full environmental impact, the researchers combined high-resolution hydrological data, chemical analysis, sediment sampling, greenhouse gas monitoring, and long-term modeling. The result was the most detailed carbon budget ever created for a European landscape influenced by beavers. The wetland acted as a net carbon sink, storing an average of 98.3 plus or minus 33.4 tons of carbon each year. Scientists found this was largely driven by the removal and storage of dissolved inorganic carbon beneath the surface. The study also revealed seasonal differences. In summer, falling water levels exposed more sediment, temporarily increasing carbon dioxide emissions and turning the area into a short-term carbon source. Across the full year, however, the buildup of sediments, vegetation, and dead wood led to substantial overall carbon storage. Researchers also found that methane emissions, often a concern in wetlands, were extremely low and accounted for less than 0.1% of the total carbon budget. Dr. Lucas Hallberg from the University of Birmingham and corresponding author of the study said, "Within just over a decade, the system we studied had already transformed into a long-term carbon sink, far exceeding what we would expect from an unmanaged stream corridor. This highlights the enormous potential of beaver-led restorations and offers valuable insights into potential land use planning, rewilding strategies, and climate policy." As sediment and dead wood continue to build up in beaver-created wetlands, more carbon becomes locked away over time. The researchers found that the sediments contained up to 14 times more inorganic carbon and 8 times more organic carbon than nearby forest soils. Dead wood from forests along riverbanks, streams, and wetlands, known as riparian forests, represented nearly half of all long-term stored carbon. These carbon stores could remain stable for decades, suggesting that beaver-modified wetlands may function as dependable long-term carbon sinks as long as the dams remain intact. Dr. Annegret Larsen, assistant professor in the Soil Geography and Landscape Group at Wageningen University, said, "Our research shows that beavers are powerful agents of carbon capture and absorption. By reshaping waterways and creating rich wetland habitats, beavers physically change how carbon is stored across landscapes." Researchers estimate that if beavers colonized all suitable floodplains areas in Switzerland, their wetlands could offset 1.2 to 1.8% of the country's yearly carbon emissions. These climate benefits could occur naturally without direct human management or additional financial cost. The study, led by the University of Birmingham, Wageningen University, and University of Bern, and international collaborators, examined Wait, is that just a repeat? Yeah, that's just a repeat of the first paragraph. We're having a lot of repeats. I think people need to proofread their articles a little bit better. As beaver populations continue to grow, scientists say more research will be needed to better understand how these animals could influence future ecosystems and long-term carbon storage. That's better. The reference article is "Beavers Can Convert Stream Corridors to Persistent Carbon Sinks" by Lucas Hallberg, Annegret Larsen, Natalie Chepperly, Raphael de Epagnier, Tom F. Browers, Bettina Schafley, Sarah Thurnhere, Joseph Barba, Christoph Angst, Matthew Dennis, and Joshua R. Larson. It was published on the 18th of March, 2026 in Communications, Earth, and Environment. That is really awesome. To everybody involved in this study from the University of Birmingham et al., looking at how beavers create awesome carbon sinks. Beavers just build it better. Cheers. All right. That is going to get us out of flora and fauna, aka plants and animals, into wholesome notes, our final section. And we've got one article in there tonight. We called this one Set Sail for a Cleaner Tomorrow. I will copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check this out. Stern warning. One man's mission to clear the rotting boats poisoning Cornwall's creeks. This was published to The Guardian on Wednesday, the 22nd of April, 2026, by Anna. How do you pronounce Anna's name? Oh my gosh. Fazakerli. This was published on April 22nd, 2026 by Anna Fazakerli. Steve Green, a boat engineer from Cornwall, was pulled over by the police just before Christmas. He was driving a decrepit-looking VW camper van and towing an even more dilapidated yacht up to Truro. He hadn't broken any laws, but he admits that Cecil the camper van, which runs on donated chip oil from local pubs and has a crane and a winch on the front, wasn't quite what VW intended. Green and Cecil the camper van are on a mission to rid the beautiful hidden creeks of Cornwall's Helford and Fall rivers of 166 abandoned fiberglass yachts, which are leaking plastic and toxins into the predominantly marine waters. Marine biologists have likened the thousands of shards of fiberglass they have found embedded in the flesh of sea creatures in areas with wrecks such as these to asbestos, a substance known to have noxious effects on humans. The problem stretches far beyond Cornwall. Across the UK, and indeed the world, the legacy of the mass-produced fiberglass pleasure boat boom is unfolding. Yachts bought in the 1960s and 1970s are now reaching the end of their useful lives, and there is no clear plan for what to do with them. Green was towing the 22-foot Hurley yacht that had alarmed the police to Truro Recycling Center, but the recycling part is euphemistic. These yachts end up in landfill. Disposal is charged by the ton, and Green paid £1,200 to dump it there. Larger yachts cost up to £3,000. It's one reason so many of them are abandoned by their owners, who don't want to foot the cost or take responsibility for disposing of them. It takes Green days to clear a discarded yacht of rubbish, silt, and sand, bail it out, and float it to a place where it can be lifted onto Cecil's trailer, or pulled upstream to Truro by Annie, the 100-year-old wooden pirate ship schooner he has lived on for most of the past 2 decades. But it matters to him that even he is causing some damage to the environment by doing this. "I don't want a massive barge with a digger on it," he says. "That would do it in a day, but the impact of that vehicle on the environment is huge." The organization he runs with his wife, Clean Ocean Sailing, relies on small charitable grants, crowdfunding, and enthusiastic volunteers willing to paddle kayaks out to wrecks and help. Green ran up £8,000 on credit cards last year when the grants didn't cover all the decaying boats he took to the dump. "It's a balance between not being so broke that my kids can't live a normal life and wanting to preserve the environment for their future," he says. Each rescue mission starts with Green putting a notice on the abandoned yacht, giving the owner 30 days to come forward and claim it. Unlike road vehicles, or even boats destined for rivers or canals, you don't need a license for a boat on coastal waters. This often makes tracing the owner impossible, especially if they don't want to be found. So many people have a dream of getting a boat, but with no thought of where to keep it or how much it will cost, says Green. Jehol, a 1970s westerly Centaur, one of the most popular British-made yachts, is a boat that Green is in the process of tackling. She has changed hands for £1 4 times, always to people with a dream and the best intentions, he says. But life takes over. Babies were born, families were moved, Jehol needed too much work and money. Left unused, the tarpaulin keeping the rain out of the cockpit ripped, and it gradually filled up. One of the keels broke off underneath, leaving a big hole in the hull for water to come in and tip the boat over. When a boat is abandoned, it can quickly begin to leak harmful oil and resin-based paint into the water. But Karina Chakan, yeah, I think that's Chakan. Karina Chakan, a marine biologist at Brighton University, is most concerned about the fiberglass. Her research has shown it breaks down into shards of microplastic which spear the flesh of mussels and oysters like javelins, as well as entering seagrass and algae that will in time be eaten by fish. Once ingested, that fiberglass will stay in the organism, and I'm working to show that it behaves in the same way as asbestos, she says. Her team examined the flesh of oysters in the sea around Chichester Harbor and found more than 11,000 shards of fiberglass per kilogram of oyster. We were stunned, she says. It's such a huge amount. Chakan believes that abandoned, rotting boats should be categorized as hazardous waste rather than merely as rubbish. She argues that boat builders should have a duty of care to think about what happens to their boat at the end of its life. Green is keen for Britain to follow the French model in which boat manufacturers have to pay an eco-contribution for every boat sold. This is combined with annual tax on boat owners, who are easy to track down because boats have to be licensed, and used to fund 35 free-to-use boat scrapping centers across France. The association Pour la Plaisance Eco-Responsible, which runs these centers, has removed more than 16,000 boats since it was launched in 2019, and is tasked with recycling as much as possible of its boats that it dismantles. Green is carefully logging all the different components of boats he has hauled out to gain a clearer idea of what may be salvageable. Over in nearby Falmouth, the harbor master was up early to catch the tide so he could tow a discarded yacht up to Truro, where it would end up in the ground. Cornwall Harbors has powers under the Harbor Revision Order to remove and dispose of abandoned boats. If the cost cannot be recovered from the owner, boat removal is paid for using harbor revenues. Miles Carden, the chief executive of Falmouth Harbor, said, "We can't afford the fees for this, but we have no choice. We don't want to sell a boat on cheaply and then see it reappear." Like other harbors, Falmouth has learned to act fast before the problem gets bigger. A boat that has sunk is far more expensive and difficult to recover. Yet Carden is also conscious that the real problem lies beyond carefully policed harbors such as his, where people pay to rent moorings and can be easily traced. The answer to this problem has got to be some sort of circular economy on recycling boats, he said, with a use for the end product. The wreck taken to Truro by the harbor master had blown its Falmouth harbor with Storm Goretti. Or had blown into Falmouth harbor with Storm Goretti. It probably came from one of the tucked away creeks upstream, where Green and his already maxed out credit card are, at present, the only solution there is. We have a follow-up too to this. So again, this article got posted back in April, and within an hour of that story having gone live in The Guardian, there were website donations that started pouring in, and they haven't stopped since. As of the filming of this episode on May 31st, 2026, sorry. The current crowdfunding is totaled at £39,816, or $53,568.45 US. So that is really cool that crowdfunding is just going wild, making sure that, this team, especially Steve Green and his wife, can continue to pull these boats out and get them put away properly. So to Steve Green and everybody involved with clearing out these old boats that are just leaching terrible material into the waterways, and protecting these waterways for future generations. Cheers. Ooh. All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. 6 amazing articles. And you can check all the articles out in the description of our video if you want to check them out at your leisure. And again, we advise you do. These sites post great stuff that normally does not get picked up by the mainstream media. So these are really great sites for good news that we're going to keep on presenting. So thank you all for tuning in or catching the replay on the Nick's News YouTube page. We're live every Sunday, and our next episode will be a cool news episode on June 7th, 2026. That's right, we have accumulated a ton of cool news, and it is quarterly that we do this, so it's going to be a cool news episode. Hope to see you there. We encourage participation, so if you feel inclined, by all means, you can post suggestions for news brews, shoutouts, news quotes, and especially good news articles that we can present on future episodes. Thank you, Faye. Faye said thank you, Nick. Thank you very much, Faye, for tuning in. If possible, if you send us a bunch of articles, try to spread them out across our 4 categories, which again were science and technology, health and medicine, flora and fauna, aka plants and animals, like Doug the Tank, and wholesome notes, like Steve Green pulling old boats out of the water to get them recycled and binned properly. So. You can message us on Facebook or Instagram, or email us at somebudgetstudios@gmail.com. Links are in the description below. Feel free to like or subscribe or comment on our content across all of our forums: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, to get good news and joy out into the algorithms. That's all we're trying to push, is just good news, and it continues to go well, in my opinion. Please no SEO improvement advertisements. We're not interested. This is a total grassroots movement. Y'all are continuing to help Nick's News grow, and I can't thank you all enough for that. Numbers continue to grow up for both our views, for our from people just linking up to the channels and all the content. It really is great to see people continuing to tune in and looking for good news. So, as always, thank you again. I love you all. Have a great night. And I will play us out.